The ship was bigger than any city on Earth. It came out of nowhere, appearing in the sky like a second moon. People on every continent looked up and saw the massive vessel blocking the sun. It was black and gold, covered in strange symbols that glowed with purple light. The ship belonged to the Galactic Accord, and it had come to deliver a message. In Geneva, Secretary General Amara Okonkwo watched the live feed from her office. She was a tall woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had led Earth's government for 12 years. In that time, she had handled wars, plagues, and disasters. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. Her assistant rushed in. "Ma'am, they're broadcasting on every frequency. Every television, every radio, every phone on Earth is receiving their signal." Amara nodded slowly. "Let them speak. The world needs to hear this." The screens flickered. A creature appeared. It had 6 limbs and skin like polished stone. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, its voice was cold and proud. "I am Ambassador Vethkan of the Sindari. I speak for the Galactic Accord, the council of 12 elder species who have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We have watched your kind crawl out of your caves and reach for the stars. We have been patient. We have been generous. That time is now over." Vethkan paused, letting his words sink in. "Your species is hereby classified as a developing civilization. As such, you will pay tribute to the Accord. You will give us 40% of all minerals you mine from your planets and moons. You will send 10,000 of your people each year for cultural exchange programs. And you will surrender all military vessels to our inspection teams." Around the world, people stood frozen in shock. Parents held their children. Soldiers gripped their weapons. Scientists stared at their screens in disbelief. "You have 72 hours to accept these terms," Vethkan continued. "If you refuse, you will face correction. Your cities will burn. Your people will be scattered. Your civilization will become a warning to others. This is not a negotiation. This is your future." The transmission ended. In Geneva, the emergency meeting began within the hour. Leaders from every nation gathered, some in person and some through holographic projections. The room was filled with fear, anger, and confusion. "We cannot fight them," said the European representative. "Our ships are nothing compared to that vessel. One of their cruisers could destroy our entire fleet." "Then we negotiate," suggested another. "We buy time. We learn their weaknesses." "There is no weakness," said a military general. "We've been studying the Accord for 80 years. They've conquered over 200 species. No one has ever successfully resisted them." Amara listened to the arguments. She watched her colleagues panic and bargain and despair, but she remained quiet. There was something they didn't know, something that had been hidden for a very long time. Finally, she stood up. The room fell silent. "I need to tell you about something," she said. "A project that has been running since before any of us were born. It started in 2267 when a Sindari scout ship crashed on Mars. We found the wreckage. We studied it, and we learned." The leader stared at her. "For 80 years we have been preparing for this day. We knew the Accord would come eventually. We knew they would demand tribute, and we decided long before I took this office that we would never kneel." She pressed a button on her console. A new image appeared on the screens. It showed a vast shipyard hidden in the darkness between stars. Hundreds of warships floated in formation, their hulls gleaming with weapons the Accord had never seen. "This is the Black Fleet," Amara said. 327 ships, built in secret, armed with technology we developed ourselves. The Accord thinks we're children playing with toys. They're wrong." The room erupted in questions. How was this possible? Why weren't they told? Could they really fight? Amara raised her hand for silence. "I understand your shock. This secret was kept to protect us. If the Accord knew what we were building, they would have come sooner. They would have come harder. We needed time, and secrecy gave us that time." Admiral Chen Wei-Lin appeared on the screen. He was an older man with a scarred face and steady hands. He had spent 40 years commanding human warships, and now he led the greatest fleet ever built. "Secretary General," he said, "the Black Fleet is ready. We await your orders." The room was silent. Every leader understood what this meant. They could surrender and survive as slaves, or they could fight and risk everything. What about allies? Someone asked. Are we alone in this? Amara smiled for the first time. No, we are not alone. For decades, our diplomats have been making quiet contact with other species, species that the Accord has conquered, species that hate their masters but were too afraid to resist. They've been waiting for someone to stand up first. If we fight, they will join us. The vote was called. One by one, each representative cast their decision. The final count was unanimous. Humanity would not pay tribute. Humanity would not send their children to be slaves. Humanity would not surrender their ships or their dignity or their future. The next morning, Secretary General Amara Okonkwo sat before the cameras. The whole world watched. Ambassador Veth Khan watched from his ship, expecting to hear the words of surrender. People of Earth, Amara said, we have received the Accord's demands. We have considered their threats, and we have made our choice. She looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were calm. Her voice was steady. Our answer is one word. One word that humans have spoken throughout history when faced with tyranny. One word that our ancestors said to kings and emperors and dictators. One word that means we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. She paused. Our answer is no. Across the galaxy, the message spread. On 100 conquered worlds, oppressed species heard the word and felt something they had not felt in centuries. Hope. Ambassador Veth Khan stared at his screen in disbelief. No species had refused the Accord in 3,000 years. He had expected begging. He had expected bargaining. He had not expected this. His first officer approached. Ambassador, what are your orders? Veth Khan's black eyes narrowed with cold fury. Signal the correction fleet, he said. These humans have chosen extinction. We will give them what they asked for. But as he gave the order, his sensors detected something impossible. Ships were appearing all around him. Human ships. Hundreds of them. Ships that had been invisible just moments before. The war had begun. Ambassador Veth Khan watched the human ships appear on his sensors. One moment, space was empty. The next moment, 200 warships surrounded his vessel. They were smaller than Sindri cruisers, but they moved with a speed and precision that made him uncomfortable. How is this possible? He demanded. We scanned this entire system. There were no ships. His science officer trembled as he answered. Ambassador, they were using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors cannot detect them unless they choose to be seen. Veth Khan felt the first hint of doubt. The Accord had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their technology was supposed to be superior to everyone else. How had these primitive humans developed something they could not detect? Far away in the cold darkness of the Oort cloud, Admiral Chen Wei-Lin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Defiance. He was 73 years old, and he had waited his entire life for this moment. Admiral, his communications officer said, we have confirmation. The ambassador's vessel is surrounded. He cannot escape. Chen nodded. Good. Open a channel. Let me speak to him. The screen flickered, and Veth Khan's stone-like face appeared. The alien's black eyes burned with anger. You have made a terrible mistake, human, Veth Khan said. Even if you destroy my ship, the correction fleet will arrive in days. You cannot fight the entire Accord. Chen smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Ambassador, let me explain something to you. We have been watching your people for 80 years. We have studied your tactics, your weapons, and your psychology. We know exactly how you think, and we have prepared accordingly. He gestured to his tactical officer. The screen changed to show a map of the galaxy. Right now, your correction fleet is gathering at Relay Station Theta 7. 2,000 ships ready to destroy Earth. But what you don't know is that Relay Station Theta 7 was sabotaged 6 months ago by agents who have been waiting for this day. Veth Khan's face changed. For the first time, there was fear in his eyes. You're bluffing, he said. Am I? Chen replied. Check your communications. Try to contact your fleet. Go ahead. I'll wait. The ambassador turned to his officers. They worked frantically at their consoles, trying to reach the correction fleet. Nothing. Every channel was silent. The relay station's communication array has been destroyed, Chen explained. Your fleet is blind and deaf. They won't know what's happening until it's too late. Back on Earth, Secretary General Amara Okonkwo was addressing the United Nations. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from every nation. Some were terrified, some were proud. All of them understood that history was being made. "We did not want this war," Amara said. "We spent decades trying to find another way. We hoped that perhaps the accord could be reasoned with. We hoped that diplomacy might work. But the accord does not negotiate, they only take." She walked across the stage, her voice growing stronger. "They call it tribute. They call it cultural exchange. But we know what it really is. Slavery, theft, the slow death of everything that makes us human, and so we said no." In the audience, a young diplomat named Maria Santos watched with tears in her eyes. Her grandmother had been born in a small village in Brazil. She had grown up with nothing, but she had taught Maria that every person has dignity. Every person deserves to be free. Now humanity was fighting for that belief. "But we are not fighting alone," Amara continued. "For years we have been making friends in the darkness. Species that the accord has crushed beneath their feet. Species that have lost their homes, their families, their hope. They have been waiting for someone to light the first fire. Today, we light that fire." She pressed a button on her podium. The screens behind her lit up with images from across the galaxy. On the water world of Vel-Nur, massive ships rose from the purple oceans. The Vel-Nuri had been conquered 500 years ago, forced to harvest their own seas for Accord luxury goods. Now they were ready to fight back. On the crystal plains of Keth Prime, silicon-based beings activated war machines that had been hidden underground for centuries. The Keth Collective had been told their mineral bodies would be mined for resources if they disobeyed. They had chosen to disobey. In the asteroid fields of the Morthani remnant, survivors of a destroyed civilization brought ancient weapons online. Their homeworld had been corrected 200 years ago. They had been waiting for revenge ever since. "The Accord thought they ruled through strength," Amara said. "They were wrong. They ruled through fear, and today fear dies." Ambassador Vethkan watched the reports flood into his ship. Rebellion everywhere. Species that had been obedient for centuries were suddenly rising up. His correction fleet was still waiting at the broken relay station, unable to receive orders. "This is impossible," he whispered. "How did you do this?" Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers. "We did what you never expected, Ambassador. We treated other species as equals. We asked them what they wanted. We listened to their pain. And we promised them that when the time came, we would stand beside them." "You will be destroyed," Vethkan said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "The Accord has ruled for 10,000 years. You cannot change that." "Watch us," Chen replied. The first battle began over Earth. Human ships engaged the ambassador's escort vessels. The fighting was brief but intense. Sindari weapons were powerful, but human ships were faster, and their shields adapted to each attack. Within an hour, the ambassador's fleet was disabled. Vethkan was taken prisoner. As human soldiers escorted him to a holding cell, he looked at them with confusion. "Why don't you kill me?" he asked. "If I were in your position, I would show no mercy." The soldier leading him was a young woman named Yuki Tanaka. She had grown up on a space station, dreaming of exploring the stars. Now she was fighting for the right to do so. "Because we're not you," she said simply. "We don't want to become what we're fighting against." Vethkan stared at her. In all his centuries of life, he had never heard such words from a conquered species. They confused him more than the human technology or the galactic rebellion. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Chen received new orders from Earth. "The Council has voted," Amara's voice said through the secure channel. "We're taking the fight to them. Target, Nexus Prime, the heart of the Accord." Chen smiled and turned to his crew. "You heard the Secretary General. Set course for Nexus Prime. It's time to finish what we started." The Black Fleet moved as one, jumping into the darkness between stars. Behind them, allied ships from a dozen species followed. For the first time in 10,000 years, the hunters had become the hunted. And somewhere on a conquered world, a child looked up at the sky and asked their parent what was happening. "Someone said no," the parent replied with wonder in their voice. "Someone finally said no." The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Earth had said no. Earth had fought back. Earth had won the first battle. On Nexus Prime, the seat of the Galactic Accord, the 12 elder species gathered in their ancient council chamber. The room was enormous, built from metals and stones taken from 1,000 conquered worlds. For 10,000 years, this chamber had been the center of galactic power. Now its masters were afraid. High Counselor Zethral of the Sindari stood at the head of the table. He was old even by Sindari standards, his stone skin cracked and worn. He had led the Accord for 3 centuries, and he had never faced a crisis like this. "Tell me again," he said slowly, "how a primitive species managed to disable our relay stations, build a fleet we could not detect, and convince our tribute species to rebel." The intelligence minister shifted uncomfortably. "We are still investigating, High Counselor. It appears the humans have been planning this for decades. They reverse-engineered technology from a crashed scout ship. They built their fleet in the outer regions of their solar system, where our sensors do not reach. And their diplomats have been making secret contact with dissatisfied species for years." "Years?" Zethral's voice was cold. "Our intelligence network spans the galaxy. How did we miss this?" No one answered. The truth was simple but humiliating. The Accord had never considered humans a threat. They were small, weak, and lived on a single planet. They were supposed to be easy victims, just like all the others. Far from Nexus Prime, the Liberation Fleet moved through space. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the stars blur past. Around him, officers from a dozen species worked side by side. Humans, Velnuri, Keth, Morthani, and others who had joined the cause. "Admiral," his navigator said, "we'll reach the Accord border in 6 hours." Chen nodded. "What's the status of our allied fleets?" "The Velnuri fleet is 2 hours behind us. The Keth Collective is approaching from the eastern arm. The Morthani, they're already at the border, waiting." Commander Yuki Tanaka entered the bridge. She had been promoted after the capture of Ambassador Vethkon, and now she led the fleet's marine forces. "Admiral, I've finished interrogating the ambassador. He's finally talking." Chen raised an eyebrow. "What did he say?" "He doesn't understand us. He keeps asking why we're doing this. He says the Accord would have been fair to us if we had just accepted their terms. He genuinely believes that tribute species should be grateful for being conquered." Chen shook his head. After 10,000 years of ruling, they've forgotten what it's like to be ruled. They can't imagine why anyone would refuse their generous offer of slavery. "There's something else," Yuki said. "He mentioned a weapon, something called the Void Hammer. He says if we push too hard, the Accord will use it." "What does it do?" "According to Vethkon, it can collapse a star, turn it into a black hole. They've used it twice before, destroying entire solar systems to make examples of rebellious species." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If the Accord had such a weapon, they could destroy Earth's sun. 8 billion people would die in an instant. Chen closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and smiled. "They don't know, do they?" Yuki looked confused. "Don't know what, sir?" "Check the classified files. Priority Alpha 7. She accessed her console and read the files. Her eyes widened. "We evacuated Earth? All of it?" "Not all of it," Chen said. "But most of our population has been moving to hidden colonies for the past 5 years. Earth still has a defense force and essential personnel, but our people are scattered across 100 worlds the Accord has never found. If they destroy our sun, they destroy a fortress, not our civilization." On Earth, Secretary General Amara Okonkwo walked through the empty streets of Geneva. The city that had once held millions now held only soldiers and essential workers. The Great Evacuation had been the hardest secret to keep, but they had done it. Ships had carried families to new homes on distant worlds. Children had been told it was an adventure. The elderly had been given comfortable quarters on Generation ships. Amara stopped at a memorial wall. It showed the names of everyone who had chosen to stay behind. Soldiers, scientists, leaders, people who knew they might die but refused to leave. Her assistant approached. "Ma'am, Admiral Chen reports the fleet is nearing the Accord border. He expects resistance soon." Amara nodded. "Tell him we're ready here. Whatever happens, Earth will not surrender." Back on the border, the Liberation Fleet made contact with the enemy. Accord warships, hundreds of them. formed a defensive line. They were massive vessels built for intimidation as much as combat, their weapons charged, ready to destroy the rebels. Admiral Chen opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Chen to all ships. The enemy outnumbers us, but they've never faced anyone who wasn't afraid of them. They've never fought someone who chose to fight. Today we show them what free people can do. For Earth, for our allies, for everyone who was told to kneel and refused." The battle began. Human ships moved with impossible speed, dancing between enemy fire. Velnuri vessels unleashed weapons designed to short-circuit accord shields. Keth war machines, immune to most conventional weapons, rammed directly into enemy cruisers. And the Morthani, filled with 2 centuries of rage, fought with suicidal bravery. The Accord had numbers, but the Liberation Fleet had something more important. They had a reason to fight. Every soldier knew what they were fighting for: freedom, dignity, a future where their children wouldn't be slaves. The battle raged for 12 hours. When it ended, the Accord border fleet was broken. Hundreds of enemy ships drifted dead in space. The Liberation Fleet had lost ships too, but they had won. Admiral Chen surveyed the battlefield. "Send a message to Nexus Prime," he ordered. "Tell them we're coming. Tell them they have one chance to surrender peacefully. Tell them that if they use the Void Hammer against any world, we will not stop until every member of the Council faces justice." The message was sent. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched and waited. The impossible was happening. The Galactic Accord was losing. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Zethral received the message. His advisors urged him to negotiate. Some even suggested surrender. But Zethral was old and proud. He had ruled for 3 centuries. He would not bow to primitives. "Activate the Void Hammer," he commanded. "Target Earth's sun. If we cannot have them as tribute, we will have them as ash." The weapon was ancient, built during the first wars of conquest. It took time to charge, time to aim. But once fired, nothing could stop it. The countdown began. The final battle was coming, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The Void Hammer was a weapon from a darker age. It sat in the heart of Nexus Prime, a machine the size of a small moon. For 5,000 years it had been silent. Now it hummed with terrible power. High Counselor Zethral watched the charging sequence with satisfaction. The humans had been clever. They had been brave. But cleverness and bravery meant nothing against a weapon that could eat stars. "How long until it's ready?" he asked. 6 hours, High Counselor. The targeting systems are locked onto Earth's sun. When we fire, the star will collapse within minutes. Nothing can survive. Zethral nodded. 6 hours. The Liberation Fleet was still 2 days away. They would arrive to find nothing but a black hole where Earth's solar system used to be. But the High Counselor had made a mistake. He thought he understood his enemy. He did not. On the Defiance, Admiral Chen received intelligence from a spy who had been hidden on Nexus Prime for 15 years. The spy was a Morthani named Elder Marath, one of the last survivors of his species' correction. He had waited 2 centuries for this moment. "The Void Hammer is charging," Morath reported through the secure channel. "You have 6 hours. Chen turned to his navigation officer. "How fast can we get there?" "At maximum speed, we can reach Nexus Prime in 4 hours. But our ships will be damaged from the stress. Some might not survive the journey." "Do it," Chen ordered. "All ships, emergency acceleration. We're going to stop that weapon." The Liberation Fleet pushed its engines beyond safe limits. Ships groaned and creaked. Some suffered hull breaches, others lost power systems, but they kept going. 3 hours into the journey, Secretary General Amara Okonkwo broadcast a message to the galaxy. "People of the Accord, tribute species, free beings everywhere, the Sindari have activated a weapon that can destroy stars. They intend to murder 8 billion innocent people to prove a point. This is who they are. This is what they have always been." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But I want you to know something. We are not afraid. We evacuated our people months ago. Earth is not our only home anymore. We have spread across the stars, just as humanity has always dreamed. If they destroy our sun, they will kill soldiers who chose to stay and fight. They will not kill our future." On Nexus Prime, Zethral heard the message and froze. "They evacuated? His voice cracked. The entire planet? His advisors scrambled to check their intelligence. It was true. The human population of Earth had dropped by 90% over the past 5 years. Ships had carried them to colonies hidden in unexplored regions of space. The Accord's great weapon would destroy an empty fortress. It doesn't matter, Zethril said, though his confidence was shaken. We will still destroy their homeworld. We will still prove that no one defies the Accord. But others on the council were not so sure. The Venthari representative, a creature of living crystal, spoke up. This is madness. They've already defeated our fleet. They have allies we didn't know existed. And now you want to use the Void Hammer against an empty world? What will that prove? That we're desperate? It will prove that we are strong, Zethril shouted. It will prove that we are afraid, the Venthari replied. The council chamber erupted in argument. For the first time in millennia, the elder species disagreed openly. Some wanted to negotiate, some wanted to flee, some wanted to fight to the death. The unity that had held the Accord together was cracking. The Liberation Fleet arrived at Nexus Prime with 30 minutes to spare. Admiral Chen looked at the massive space station that served as the Accord's capital. It was beautiful in a terrible way, built from the wealth of 1,000 conquered worlds. And somewhere inside, the Void Hammer was preparing to fire. All ships engage the defense fleet, Chen ordered. Marines, prepare for boarding. We need to reach that weapon. The final battle began. Accord defenders fought with desperation. They knew that if they lost, their entire way of life would end. But the Liberation Fleet fought with something stronger than desperation. They fought with hope. Commander Yuki Tanaka led the Marine assault. Her team breached the station's hull and fought through corridors designed for beings much larger than humans. They faced Sindari warriors, automated defenses, and traps built over thousands of years. How much time do we have? Yuki shouted over the sounds of combat. 20 minutes, her lieutenant replied. The weapon is in the central chamber. They pushed forward, losing soldiers with every step. The Sindari fought without mercy, believing they were protecting their civilization. The humans fought without hesitation, believing they were protecting theirs. 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5. Yuki's team reached the central chamber. The Void Hammer loomed before them, a massive ring of metal and energy. At its controls stood High Counselor Zethril himself, guarded by his personal warriors. Stop, Zethril commanded. If you come closer, I will fire immediately. Yuki paused. Her soldiers aimed their weapons, but they did not fire. You've already lost, she said. Your fleet is destroyed. Your council is divided. Your tribute species are free. Firing that weapon won't change anything. It will prove that we cannot be defeated. Zethril's voice was wild now, desperate. It will show the galaxy that defiance has a price. No, Yuki said quietly. It will show the galaxy that you're a monster, and monsters don't get to rule. She gave a signal. Her soldiers didn't fire their weapons. Instead, they activated devices on their wrists. Electromagnetic pulses flooded the chamber, designed specifically for Sindari technology. Zethril's guards collapsed as their implants failed. The High Counselor himself fell to his knees, weakened but alive. The Void Hammer's controls went dark. The weapon powered down. Yuki walked forward and stood over the fallen ruler. We could kill you, she said. We probably should. Your people have murdered billions. You've enslaved thousands of species. You've destroyed entire worlds. Zethril looked up at her with hatred in his eyes. Then do it. Prove you're just like us. Yuki shook her head. That's the thing. We're not like you. We never were. She turned to her soldiers. Take him into custody. He'll face trial for his crimes. A real trial, with evidence and defense and judgment. That's how free people do things. Outside, the battle was ending. Accord ships were surrendering. The Council station was captured. The Liberation Fleet had won. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the last enemy ships powered down their weapons. Admiral, his communications officer said, we're receiving surrender signals from across the galaxy. Accord governors, fleet commanders, even some council members. They're asking for terms. Chen sat back in his chair. He suddenly felt very tired. Tell them the fighting is over, he said. Tell them we're not interested in revenge. Tell them we want to talk about what comes next. On Earth, Amara Okonkwo received the news. The Void Hammer was captured. Nexus Prime had fallen. The war was effectively over. She walked to her window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity's scattered children were watching, waiting to hear if they could come home. She pressed the broadcast button. People of Earth, people of humanity, the Galactic Accord has fallen. We have won. And across 100 hidden worlds, human beings wept and cheered and held each other close. They had done the impossible. They had said no to the masters of the galaxy. Now came the harder part, building something better. 6 months had passed since the fall of the Galactic Accord. The council chamber on Nexus Prime, once a symbol of tyranny, had been transformed. The golden thrones of the elder species were gone. In their place stood a simple circular table where representatives from hundreds of worlds sat as equals. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo stood at the center, preparing to address the gathering. She looked older than she had a year ago. The war had taken its toll, but her eyes still burned with the same calm determination. "We gathered today to create something new," she said. "For 10,000 years, this galaxy was ruled by fear. The strong took from the weak. The powerful crushed the powerless. Species were divided into masters and slaves. That era is over." The chamber was silent. Representatives from former tribute species sat beside former council members. Victims and oppressors, now forced to find a new way forward. "Many of you want revenge," Amara continued. "I understand. The crimes of the Accord cannot be forgotten. Worlds were destroyed. People were enslaved. Cultures were erased. Justice must be served." She paused. "But justice is not the same as revenge. Revenge creates new victims. Revenge builds new hatreds. Revenge ensures that one day the oppressed become oppressors. We must be better than that." Elder Marath, the Morthani survivor, stood up. His crystal body caught the light, reflecting 1,000 colors. "My world was destroyed 200 years ago. My species numbered in the billions. Now we are thousands. For 2 centuries, I dreamed of making the Sindari suffer as we suffered. I wanted to see their worlds burn." He turned to face the gathered representatives. "But the humans showed me another way. When they could have killed Ambassador Vethkan, they took him prisoner. When they captured the Void Hammer, they did not use it. When they won the war, they did not enslave their enemies. They chose mercy, even when mercy was not deserved." In the corner of the chamber, former High Counselor Zethral sat in chains, awaiting his trial. He had expected to be executed immediately. Instead, he had been given lawyers, access to evidence, and the right to defend himself. The process confused him more than anything else. A young Velnori diplomat took the floor next. Her aquatic skin shimmered blue and green as she spoke. "My grandmother was taken in a tribute collection when she was 12 years old. She spent 40 years serving Sindri households before she escaped. She died last month, but before she died, she asked me to deliver a message." The chamber waited. She said, "Tell them that freedom is not just the absence of chains. Freedom is how you treat others when you have the power to harm them." The humans understood this. Make sure the new government understands it too. Amara nodded. "Your grandmother was wise, and she was right. The galactic compact we are creating today will be built on a simple principle. No species is above another. Not humans, not Sindari, not anyone. We rise together or we fall together." The document was signed by representatives from over 300 species. It established a new government based on equal representation. It created courts to try war criminals, but also programs to help former tribute species rebuild. It banned weapons capable of destroying stars, and it declared that every being in the galaxy had basic rights that could not be taken away. After the ceremony, Amara walked through the corridors of the station. She was stopped by a voice. "Secretary General." She turned. Ambassador Vethkan stood behind bars in a holding cell, waiting to be transferred to the tribunal. His stone face was unreadable. "Ambassador," she said, "I didn't expect you to want to talk to me." "I don't understand," Vethkan said. "I've been trying to understand for 6 months, and I cannot." "Understand what?" "Why you didn't destroy us. You had the power. Your fleet could have bombarded every Sindari world. You could have used the Void Hammer against us. You could have made us suffer for everything we did. Why didn't you? Amara studied him for a long moment. Because no wasn't just our answer to you, she said finally. It was our answer to becoming you. We refused to pay tribute, but we also refused to become tyrants. If we had destroyed your worlds, we would have become exactly what we were fighting against. Vethkin shook his head slowly. I don't understand. Power exists to be used. The strong rule, the weak serve. That is the natural order. No, Amara said gently. That's just the order you created. There is nothing natural about it. The real measure of strength is not what you can take. It's what you choose not to take. She left him alone with his thoughts. He had centuries to consider her words. 1 year later, the first human Sindari cultural exchange began. Not forced labor, but genuine exchange. Young Sindari traveled to human colonies to learn. Young humans traveled to Sindari worlds to teach. Slowly, painfully, understanding began to grow. 5 years later, the reconstruction of the Morthani homeworld began. Human engineers worked alongside Sindari workers, rebuilding what had been destroyed. Elder Marath laid the foundation stone for a new city, tears streaming down his crystalline face. 10 years later, a child was born on a world at the edge of the galaxy. Her mother was human. Her father was Velnuri. Such unions had been unthinkable under the old accord. Now they were common. The child grew up hearing stories about the war. She learned about the day the humans said no. She learned about the battles, the sacrifices, the victory. But the story that stuck with her most was told by an old Sindari teacher who had once served the Accord. I used to believe that the galaxy belonged to the strong, the teacher said. I was wrong. The humans proved that true strength is not about power. It's about what you stand for. They stood for something simple, that every being deserves to be free. And when they had the chance to take revenge, they taught us a different word instead. The child asked what word. Enough, Atiuam, the teacher said. They looked at 10,000 years of cruelty and said, enough. No more tribute, no more slavery, no more fear. Enough. That one word changed everything. The child thought about this for a long time. Years later, she became a diplomat, traveling to distant worlds to help resolve conflicts. When she was asked why she did this work, she always gave the same answer. Because someone said no when it mattered, and someone said enough when they could have said more. I want to be worthy of that. Across the galaxy, monuments stood on 100 worlds. Not monuments to war or victory, but monuments to a moment. The moment when someone finally refused to kneel. And on Earth, in the rebuilt city of Geneva, a simple stone stood in the center of a peaceful square. It bore no images, no grand inscriptions, just 2 words carved into its surface. No, enough. People passed it every day. Most didn't stop to look. But those who did often stood for a long time, thinking about what those words meant. Somewhere in the stars, new challenges waited. New conflicts would arise. New tyrants would try to rule through fear. But the people of the galaxy had learned something important. They had learned that power does not have to be cruel, that strength does not require oppression, that the measure of a civilization is not what it conquers, but what it protects. And they had learned that sometimes history turns on a single word. No, and then another. Enough. The humans had taught them that, and the galaxy would never forget.